Hello, welcome back everyone. Good afternoon from Indonesia. I'm your host Irene Sukandar, and today it is another day at the office. We are going to see round number 6 of the UzChess Cup or Uzbekistan Chess Cup 2024. And yesterday we've seen so many interesting games, and but the young Yakuboev Norderback managed to keep the sole lead and half a point away from the second placers. And I think it is quite a close race between the young Uzbeks, because the three of them who are playing in the master sections, they are pretty much on the first, second and third place. So wow. But there are still 4 more games to go. Anything can still happen. The whole leaderboards can still be changed depending on how they are going to perform in the last 4 rounds. So let's also update our schedule of the tournament. Today we play round 6. I'm a bit sad because it looks like we're already entering the halfway of the tournament and only a few more rounds until we finish the event. But I'm just not ready yet. And as for the standings, as I mentioned earlier, Norderback Yakuboev is leading by himself 3.5 out of 5 without any losses. So, and tailing just behind, half a point behind, is Sindarov, Yuyangi and Abdusattorov. And sharing the 4th place together is Richard Rapport versus Sarana, who yesterday also shared the point, but Sarana just completely missed the win against Rapport, where he was actually much better, but he released the tension a bit too soon, and Rapport managed to equalize the game. And also on the 7th place, we have Shahriar Mamedyarov, Parham Maksudlu and Fidit Santosh. And on the bottom place, it is Alexander Grischuk with 1.5 points. So it's not really a tournament for Grischuk, but I hope he can bounce back in the remaining 4 rounds. So we'll see about that. And today we have Sarana versus Yakuboev. So Sarana was winning yesterday, but he only settled for a draw, while Yakuboev was kind of in pressure against Mamedyarov, but he actually managed to equalize the game and draw the game in the end. Sindarov will be playing today against Mamedyarov, and Grischuk will be playing against Parham. Yuyangi will be taking on Uzbekistan number 1, Abdusattorov, while Richard Rapport will be playing against Fidit Santos Gujarati. So, well, there are many moments in yesterday's game where there were some instructive positions, both in tactical and understanding. So I really like the game between Abdusattorov versus Grischuk yesterday, because he really showed a better understanding in the opening and in the middle game, and also finishing the game very well, not giving any chance to his opponent. While in the game between Rapport and Sarana, there were so many missed moments. Rapport opened the game with such an ambitious moves, and he didn't castle. He in fact managed to play h4 and then a rook lift to rook h3, but in the end he had to succumb with a worse position and almost losing. But Sarana didn't finish the job well, and Rapport managed to get away with the draw. And without further ado, let's dive straight into the games because they have started. So let's also the first board that I have here is between Yuyangi versus Abdusattorov, but of course we're going to also focus on the game between Sarana versus Yakuboev, because Yakuboev is currently leading the tournament alone. And okay, let's take a look what is going on the first board first. So Yuyangi is white. I think this is his first time playing e4 in this tournament, because he's a very universal player. He can play any first move, of course, but if I remember correctly, he's been playing first move d4, but now today he's playing e4 against Abdusattorov. And let's take a look what's happening in their game. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. So we see this like what I usually call the three knights variation, but I think it's officially two knights defense. Okay, I think we only saw this idea or knight g5 variation happened in the challenger from 2 days ago or yesterday. It was between Fakidov versus Suleimanli. So, but here it didn't happen. Yang Yi chose to play the most traditional move, d3, and after bishop e7, castle, and rook e1, d6, and a4, because, well, if you don't do anything, let's say you play h3 here, which also is a very common move to make, there is knight f5. Black's intention is just trying to get after the bishop, and if the bishop tries to escape like this, to be honest, there's no way to escape, because after this, and then eventually you will get back to the b3 square where the knight can take it at any point. So after d6, a4 was needed, because in any case of knight f5, the bishop can just hide on a2. Here, bishop e6 was the move that Abdusattorov played. Now, the thing is, usually in the European or Italian, whenever there is bishop e6, you can put the bishop back to b3. But unfortunately now, since the pawn is already moved to a4, if you play bishop b3, it's not going to be a good position for you, because after this, and you're just leaving so many weak squares on b4 and on d4. Let's say a5 is the move, or even if it's not f5, if black doesn't try to spoil the position even more for white, black stands, I would say, in the long term better, but maybe in this position it's still like quite equal. So that's why after bishop e6, Yang Yi just tried to simplify everything, and he took the bishop on e6, f takes e6, and c3. So yeah, c3 is always the common theme in this type of position. You want to play d4 at some point, and this is going to be quite a slow game. Also, additionally, this invites b4 as well. So it would be depending on how Yang Yi would like to proceed with the game, which strategy that he's going to use, because this position is actually very rich of strategical battles, because there's almost no straight point to get to what you want. So you have to be quite flexible in choosing your variation, not only to get to your idea, but also try to prevent your opponent's idea on the board. Okay, so while Abdusattorov is still thinking, we can move on and then see the next game by Sarana versus Yakuboev. So yesterday, there are so many moves already happening on the board, and they already finished. Oh my gosh! So this must be some theoretical position then. I'm just lucky I actually caught a glimpse of the game, or the glimpse of the players before they leave the board, because it has already finished after 19 moves. So there is no move limit in offering a draw or agree to a draw. Players can totally do it at any point, but this is also pretty much a strategy. And well, Sarana is, of course, everyone in this field is a very strong player. So this is maybe also another strategy for Yakuboev, because games are just going to be more intense closing into the end of the tournament. So he might need all the energies that he can get in order to face those last 3 rounds, because the last 3 rounds will be very, very important to him. And also, please be reminded, Yakuboev is actually the lowest rated player in the field, but he managed to lead the tournament for a few rounds in a row now. So it's amazing. And the camera has been switched back to Sindarov, who is playing on the board 3 versus Mamedyarov. So we'll get to that games soon. But let's take a look what's happening in the game between Sarana versus Yakuboev. Like what sort of opening or variation that they played until they agreed to make a draw very fast. So we have a Nimzo in this position, and Queen C2. So Queen C2 is a bit outdated. Most of the players these days playing against the Nimzo, they're gonna play other position, although Queen C2 is of course the old classical main line in this Nimzo, but these days people are playing A3, people are playing F3 or even Knight F3 like that. So let's see what happened after Queen C2, and here Yakuboev chose castle, and I guess this type of position has arisen many times also in this tournament, where black is spoiled with choices. Black can castle here, black can play c5, black can play b6. I think black also can play d5, just depending on what sort of position that you would like to get. But here Yakuboev chose to just castle, and then after that e4 and d5. So this is actually a pretty straightforward approach, and e5 and then you play knight e4. Yeah, this is the one of the main lines as well, and then f3 takes this and takes d4. You bring the knight over, and bishop f4, trying to protect the pawn on e5, and queen h4. Yeah, I think in the old days this queen move, it's a bit dubious, but also it offers so many tricks as well. Like after g3 here, you have two options to play queen h3 or queen h5, and queen h5 was what he chose. Castles and g5, so bishop e3, and then knight takes e5, bishop e2, and then queen g6. So actually, if I can pull up my Lichess database, whether any players have played, yeah, there are a couple of games here, and it continued with knight takes e4, d takes e4, and now c5, trying to get this bishop trap maybe, but you just can play bishop d7, which is fine, and then a3, bishop a5, and f4. It takes f3. This looks actually very complicated, but after queen takes g6, assuming that this is the last move of the game, it means Sarana offered the draw and accepted by Yakuboev. So if we analyze this final position, yeah, this is still 0-0-0. Yeah, you take it with the pawn on h, so hg, and then now you have to take the pawn on f3, so knight takes f3, let's say. And after knight takes f3, bishop takes f3. It's gonna be simplified a lot. Here takes and b4. I mean, if you want to still play, of course you can. But the evaluation is 0-0-0. So maybe that's why the players, they don't feel like they want to continue. Oh, actually, the camera has changed to to the first board of the challenges section between Pratke versus Yilmaz, so I will update it to that. So, alright, so queen g6 is on the queen g6 was the last move, and yeah, potentially the game could have happened like this, and it's still going to be quite an equal position. And yeah, instead of drawing later 3 hours later, they agreed to just call it a day and go back to hotel rooms and get ready for the next rounds. Okay, so let's also move on to the third board between Sindarov versus Mamedyarov. So if you remember the standings, so Yakuboev is alone with 3.5 points, and then the other two Uzbeks, Abdusattorov and Sindarov, they are just tailing behind with 3 points. So, and they are the only 3 players from Uzbekistan that are playing in the master section. So it's like, of course, I believe there's some rivalries among these players, but I could only see good things from this rivalry, because they are pushing themselves harder in order not to lose the race, because this is like a race, how many points that you're gonna get. And I guess Abdusattorov hasn't played Yakuboev. Sindarov has played Abdusattorov. Sindarov won, And Sindarov, what about Sindarov Yakubov? Actually, let me take a look. That's actually very interesting to see all these young Uzbeks playing against each other. Yeah, it's also... Oh, Abdusattorov already drew against Yakubov. Which game again was that? I think it was the long one, yeah? Yes, so the match between these three people, it will be left with Yakubov versus Sindarov, but it's only going to happen tomorrow. Wow. Okay, so out of the 3 rounds, yeah, it's going to be tomorrow. Yakubov will be playing against Sindarov. Big match, of course. And the good thing for Yakubov is he's taken a draw, a very quick draw, so he's free for the remaining of the day and possibly preparing for tomorrow's matches. So, let's come back to this game. It hasn't moved so many moves yet, so let's see. So d4, d5, it's Queen's Gambit accepted. Knight f3, a6, and after a3, b5, a4, and bishop b7. So this is the current position. Not many moves yet. I think Sindarov is still choosing which variation that he wants to play. And b3 is the main line here. A b5 is also the second popular move. But yeah, we'll see which one that he is gonna pick. Also, I'm going to make room for any surprise as well, because these young players, they always come up with something new that we didn't expect before. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on this game, of course, and we'll wait which variation that Sindarov will choose to play this game against Mamedyarov. And meanwhile, on the 4th board, Alexander Grischuk is playing against Parham. So both of them, especially Grischuk, is not having the best of the tournaments. And let's take a look what's happening in their games. d4, then f6, c4, e6, and knight f3, d5, like Queen's Gambit decline. And now we see Catalan. Bishop e7, bishop g2, and castle, the classical approach in the Catalan. h6, yeah, h6 is it is seen in many Catalan variations, but to play it now, it only meant this is just a waiting move, because now I think it's just waiting for which variation that White is going to play. And apparently Grischuk just played pretty much the main line, Queen c2, trying to protect the c4 pawn. So here Parham continued with c6. So this is also like the classical approach. You just want to put the knight on knight bd7, and then you play maybe b6, a5, bishop a6 like that. Or, well, it would be also, of course, depending on what setup that White is trying to get in this position. And as we can see, Grischuk has been thinking a lot, and he just moved something, rook d1. It's a classical approach as well, and probably, if I can guess, he will continue with a move like b3, trying to protect this, because you want to put the knight on c3 and try to push e4, because just try to make sense the meaning of rook d1. Usually you want to open up the center, but it means the queen cannot work alone. It has to be assisted by the knight. But yeah, if the knight goes here, it kills the purpose of rook d1. So the knight has to move to c3, and then if you can break it open with e4, I think the position is going to be better for White. So after rook d1 here, the other approach that Black can try is also to play if knight bd7, maybe knight e5 is another option too, although there's nothing wrong with b3, bishop here, knight c3, and e4. So Parham is now thinking, yeah, this little move h6 it can be useful, of course, because you're creating a space for your king in the back rank. But since it is not the main line, we have to find the reason why it is not a main line. I think it's because its use is not necessary at this moment yet. It might be necessary later, but at this moment, time is of the essence. You have to get all the principles in chess going on your game, to develop your pieces first, play in the center, and etc. But h6, yeah, maybe it will get punished by Khrushchev. We'll see. It's still too early to call that, but yeah, I would have traded this move with other moves. That's probably like b6 maybe. It would have been probably a better outcome for black in this position. But rook d1 is on the board, and now Parham is thinking. So let's continue checking the next one. It's between Richard Rapport versus Fidit, and what we are seeing right now is, what are we seeing? Another Gyocho piano or Spanish? So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. Knight f6. So Fidit is offering to play Berlin, but Rapport just stop it by playing d3, bishop c5 and c3, and then we actually kind of like transposing it to the close rule of S. Castle, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and then bishop back to e7, castles, d6, and then bishop g3 here. And after a6, bishop a4, yeah, you gotta save that bishop. And now knight h5, trying to get the bishop on g3. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with this position. Although this is quite a how you call it, a concrete continuation, because the move like knight h5, you have to always be ready if there is any tactic with knight e5, because if you take this, knight will take this one first, and it's attacking the queen, so you have to take this, and the next move white will just takes the knight on g3, and white is standing better. I mean, a pawn up. So what is going on? If knight h5, knight takes e5, if you take this knight also, oh, maybe you take this knight. Okay, wow, that's cute, because queen takes h5, there is bishop g4, and the queen is trapped. I see. So that is the reason why knight h5 works. And if you say that, oh, I don't want to get my queen trapped, so I will just take the e5 knight first, which fine. But here takes, and after queen takes, I guess the move is queen takes d3, and now pawns are equal. But let's say you want to grab more pawns like this. Queen takes e5, attacking the bishop. But I guess in this type of position, white, although white is having an extra pawn, black has enough compensation, because this pawn will sooner or later be weak. So maybe bishop d6. Now if you move anywhere that is far from the pawn, queen will take the pawn, so you have to move it here. And here, what do I do? Probably, yeah, I don't want to trade. I want to keep my queen on the board, so maybe I will just try to get this little pawn by playing queen e2. And let's say, yeah, how do you handle this position? I think the compensation is so nice for black. I would totally play this if I were black, because I give up a pawn, but I have more activity. My two bishops are working, and potentially one of the pawns will be captured, so black will be able to regain his pawn. So this is actually a good continuation for black. And this pawn is now hanging. If you move the queen here, this one is hanging. So the mathematics of this position is, if black managed to get the material back, black will be left with much better position. So, and if black doesn't get it, it means black is just going to keep attacking until it gets it. So there should be some material losses that white suffer in the end. So if knight d2, let's say, this will be enough time for the bishop to go to e6. And then just keep attacking. Where does the queen go? It cannot just go to any square, any random square, because the knight is hanging here. So let's say the queen goes here, and this gives time for black to also developing the rook like this, rook a d8, with the idea of discovery to h2. So this is gonna be like quite a horrible position. And how else can you stop this from getting captured? I don't think you can. If b3, I think if b3, I like this idea. Rook d8, bishop e6 again, and also the bishop is kind of trapped. At some point when the queen is not here, I can play b5. Oh, this is going to be too much. So that's why these players, especially Report, he didn't fall into that. So, and then apart from this, what else can we see in this position? So if knight takes is the move. That's pretty much it, yeah. If you don't take this, I will take this. If you don't take this, there's always something along the way. So knight a5, yeah, knight e5 didn't work. So things like that, we have to work it in a concrete calculation, because in principle it's always an idea, it is a pattern. So if you understand or memorize all these middle game patterns, you would be like, oh, wait a second, knight e5 is there. But of course, things like that you have to calculate carefully, because sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not work. So in this case, it doesn't work for white. So I don't know whether Report missed it or not, because it would be quite a shame to miss this bishop actually. So there's a good chance that he might actually miss it. Let's try to understand it from his time situation. So in this position, okay, he hasn't spent any time on his clock, but after knight h5, also he didn't spend it so much time. So maybe he thinks that everything is fine. Losing the bishop on g3 is not really a big deal. So knight g3, hg3, and here, I like actually Fidet's approach. He played knight b8, knowing that the knight on c6 doesn't really do anything. So it might be better place. For example, knight d7 and then f6. And also maybe it's giving more space for the other pieces to come forward, especially the pawns first, like b5, not b6, and then c5, and probably we are gonna see like the normal approach in the Rue Lopez, where you are trying to gain more space advantage with the pawns on the queen side. So we'll see if it's going to happen. And I think we can go as well to the challenger. Just want to see what's happening there. So, well, I have to update the camera because it was quite unexpected that the game between Sarna and Yakubov finished that fast. And actually, what am I seeing? G4 just played by itself. Wow, that is a very tricky. So in this position, if you just simply take G4, just like that, there is knight E4, and apparently it is a double attack to both of the bishops on C5 and D7. So if you don't do anything with this pawn, this can be moved to G5. But let's say you play H6, I think you can still push H4 so that G5 is there. And what if I try to play here? Maybe just G5 and takes, wherever this knight goes, you play knight e4, and then probably white is trying to gain space like that, especially on the king side. Now the queens are already off of the board, so you can feel safer in pushing the pawns to the g5 square. So let's come back to Yang versus Abdusattorov, and the game went with, wait, what was the last move again that we saw? I think it was c3 like this, and Abdusattorov chose to play a5, try to stop any idea of b4, and here bishop e3. So this is still like a normal development. Queen d7, knight bd2, h6, and knight c4. Yeah, the good thing about knight c4 in this position here is the pawn is already moved to a5, so you can totally employ this idea because knight will not be challenged by this pawn thanks to your pawn over here. And also the idea of knight c4 is, in this type of position, usually black is trying to prepare for the d5 push. So by playing knight c4, you're kind of preventing it from happening because e5 will be hanging. But here, black has many ideas too. So if one idea will not be able to succeed, like d5 here, then you can always consort to any other idea. So rook f7 is on the board. I think I also like this idea because you just try to improve any pieces that you can. Rook f7 is there, and then followed by rook a f8 soon probably, and you're just trying to utilize the open f file because this is the only file that you can try to get some attacks on. So I don't know if this one is preferable, so let's actually see what's happening here. The computer likes white actually. The computer likes white, so knight c4, rook f7, and then the computer suggested bishop d2 back. Yeah, this is hard. Oh man, it's gonna be hard to find this move. Bishop d2 being the best move by computer. While I'm gonna keep analyzing this a bit later, let's take a look at Sukandar versus Mamedyarov. It has finished with a draw again. Oh, the same approach. These two players, Sukandarov and Yakubov, will be playing against each other tomorrow. Is this one of their strategies actually to just call it a day and try to prepare against each other tomorrow? And they're in the same national team. I think they work together as well, and they grew up almost. I think if you're in the national team since you were a kid, I think they should know each other very well on and off the board. So okay, just to update ourselves on this game, like after bishop b7, b3, Sukandarov just chose the main line here, e6, and then a b5, and then a b5, just take a8, and then take c4, and this has happened. And after knight f6 castles and knight bd7. And maybe after knight bd7, it was Mamedyarov who over the draw because this was the last move in the position. And yeah, so we already have 2 draws in the master section then. It's not even an hour, so okay, maybe it's a good strategy. Yeah, 3 more rounds to go, and players, I believe they're getting exhausted because just to play against this type of opponents from the first round, it's gonna be very, yeah, it's exhausting. Okay, so let's come back to the first board again. Yang versus Abdusattorov, and queen b3 was what Yang played, which is more human, to be honest, instead of bishop d2, because you already played bishop c1 e3. Why are you putting it back to d2? Probably because you want to put the knight on e3, but for what reason? It's it's really hard to understand such a thing. Or maybe you're preparing for d4 too. But yeah, queen d3, I like it better. It's more human, and it's easier to understand. You just want to attack this pawn on b7, and now it has moved to b6, and allowing your rook to go to the center. So after like queen b3, a few moves after that, yeah, it's easy to explain to you guys, because sometimes these grandmasters, they play too creative. Even I also don't understand what was going on, and I would very much need help from the computer to make sense of their moves. So not rook d1, but he played queen b5. So what could be the idea? So probably he's trying to make d4 work then. Let's say in this position, or maybe b4. B4 also possible. You're trying to use this idea like the outside pass pawn, but the thing is, usually outside pass pawn happens in the end game, but maybe Yuyangi is trying to do it. So rook f7, what is the purpose of rook f7? It's usually preparing to double up the rook to f8. So assuming that after queen b5, black is being consistent with the idea to double up the rook, then I think in this position you can push b4, attacking this one, and then after takes, your idea is simple. You just want to have a pass pawn on the a file like this, and this will be like your source of, how to say, like not attacking, but source of all the aggression, because it looks like on the king side you cannot do anything. Black is better in the king side, and the center is kind of also pretty much close. It's black has so many pieces and pawns in the center, so white cannot really play in the center. So white is just trying to see if queen side is a better side to continue the game, because this is probably the side that white is slightly better. So queen b5 is on the board. Yeah, now I'm thinking b4, but let's see if d4 also works. Because if you take this one, then this one is hanging. Although, yeah, this type of position, no, I don't think it's d4. Yeah, after d5 like this, black is better. So I don't think it's d4. I think actually queen b5, the intention is to play b4 like this. So probably now Abdusattorov has to keep the rook on a8 just to get ready of this b4. So after b4 happens, probably you don't have to do anything, and then just let this to be captured, because you will have the rook on f5 in the end. So, but of course, if the rook stays on a8, white will not push b4, because there's no reason to. And maybe also after rook f8, b4, and then what about rook comes back here again? Yeah, I don't know about this. It's wasting a tempo, but I mean it's still possible. So, but yeah, there's no reason of wasting a tempo with rook f8. So if we can come up with any move here, let's say, okay, this is neutral piano. You'd always want to get to the other to go to do b4, but is this the right time to play knight h5? I just want to put it on f4, although probably that really doesn't mean anything. Oh, or maybe since now everything is pinned, this one is pinned, this one is also pinned because of this knight, we can push d4. Yeah, so knight h5 is not a good idea. Yeah, after d4, white is better. So what else can black play in this position? After queen b5, we saw rook f8, we saw knight h5. What else can we see? Yeah, what else can we see here? I mean, everything is pretty closed. So Yeah, the idea of exchanging like this might be accepted happily by white actually, because you always have this idea of trying to get some pass pawn, like takes here, next move you play a5. But ooh, look at that, I like this move, g5. So Abdusattorov realized what's happening. Yeah, he needs to keep the rook on a8 because of b4. He cannot do anything in the center like this. He has to keep it intact, mainly because the queen has to be protected to avoid any sort of pawn advancement in the center like d4. I mean, you have to be ready to capture d4. But if your knight is away and the queen is hanging, you cannot do that because it will only leave the queen vulnerable. So g5 is just the move that I really like to see in this position. It's very ambitious. Yeah, so potentially trying to kick this knight away from f3 because it always indirectly attacks the pawn on e5. And the move like h3, I don't think it should come to your mind because it will only just weakening the whole position. And maybe now, since g5 is kind of the cover for the queen to h5, maybe now it's time to play knight here. Or maybe also black can actually consider to play rook f8, because even though in the long term white might have the outside pass pawn, but having this type of position, it is looking very fragile around the king. So let's say after this, you can, what can you do in this position? Yeah, maybe takes, and then knight here. I don't know. It looks very, yeah, like very fragile. Any sort of sacrifice might happen to f3. So g5 is on the board, and I think as for white has to just let it be, like waiting for g4 to happen, and the knight can actually retreat to d2, or if you want to work it out, maybe to h4, and then protect it with g3 ladder. So it can be like that. But nice, it's a very nice concept here by Abdusattorov. Okay, so he is still thinking. I believe he's gonna take some time here dealing with this position. It is equal, but it is quite complicated too, because if you choose the wrong idea, it's gonna be very hard to come back and redo it again, like to redo another idea, because you will lose so much time in the process. So let's continue with bot 4 between Christiuk versus Maksudlu. Have they finished too? Or the players are just away? Yeah, I'm not too sure. The clocks are the clocks are still ticking. But maybe Christiuk already played bishop b2, and then since Parham was not on the board, he also just left. So everything happened according to our prediction, that after rook d1 here, b6 was played by Parham, so this is also kind of the normal approach and the classical variation against Catalan. b3, and after bishop a6, bishop b2. So waiting for the right time to play knight c3, of course, because after bishop a6 here, if you play knight c3, I think well, there is always a common sacrifice on c4, but here apparently Christiuk wouldn't like to sacrifice anything, so he just played bishop b2, and Parham played knight bd7 and left the board again. And now it's Christiuk's turn to continue this. Yeah, knight. So if the knight cannot go to c3, then yeah, probably it's just knight bd2. You want to play e4 the next move, but also at the same time, since this knight is already on d7, I think it is time to actually push c5. So trying to counter this e4 idea with another counter attack pretty much to the center, and it's just a matter of time till the rook goes to c8 and trying to indirectly attack the queen on c2. But if it's not knight bd2, what can he do? Yeah, knight bd7 is preparation for c5. Another idea, I think it's like this, knight e5. So it's attacking the c6 pawn. Okay, we will see rook c8, but if you take this one, takes, well, doesn't matter where the knight is, maybe knight goes to d7. I think in this position you just wait, takes first and then e4 or e4 immediately. I think it takes first and you have to take with this and then e4. So, and if after rook here, then okay, you can just play queen d2, I guess, and then this pawn is under attack. Or maybe, I don't know, in this position, can you just play knight c3 even? And you're still attacking this pawn. Knight takes this. I think white will be a bit better in the end, so this is also another idea. But knight bd2 is what Grishchuk chose, so c5 I might play here if I were black, but also additionally rook c8 is not a bad move to play. Let's say rook c8 and e4. The thing is, after this, e5 is about to play, so I don't think I have time to play c5, because after c5, e5 might have to be a bit passive by going knight e8 maybe, but this all can be avoided by playing c5 immediately. So we'll see if this one is what Parham will play. And apart from those two moves, is there anything else to be played in this position? Yeah, the knight is already close this file toward the queen, and yeah, so still no move yet from Parham, and he's still choosing which one to play. Let's also update ourselves on Rapport versus Fitted. And in this game, what's happening after knight takes g3, hg3, and then knight b8? Oh yeah, and d4 and bishop f6. So rook e1 was played. Alright, so rook e1, I think the idea is to play knight f1, knight e3, and then having the knight here is nice to control both squares on d5 and f5. And yeah, Fidit is still thinking. Rapport has been playing pretty quickly. Yeah, he's not taking so much time on his clock. Well, the game itself is not complicated. I think it will be played out by itself, and I think Rapport has been just playing all the natural moves anyway. And yeah, it doesn't require so much time. But here Fidit is trying to get the best strategy that he can get. So for example, where to put the bishop, where to put the knight, and what about these pawns? Because now with the move d4, I don't think you are able to play c5 now. Technically you can, but you're just closing down the center like that. But b5 might be quite a better alternative, although you cannot just play a move like that without any sort of plan behind it. So I think in this position it is very critical for Fidit to have a grand plan of of his pieces, where to put it and where to play, whether it is on the center or on the queen side, or will he do anything on the king side as well, or maybe he will not do anything here on the center and queen side. He can just play g6, bishop g7, let's say, and play f5, and then try to attack in the King's Indian style. So yeah, everything is still up to his choice now, like which one that he's gonna play. Or will he play b5, bishop here, let's say, and then bishop b7, so playing on the queen side but also trying to control the center as well. But usually this approach, you have the knight on f6, so you're trying to control the pawn on e4, but here you don't have it anymore. So I guess you have to also adapt to the strategy, since the characteristic of the position or the game is already changed too. Okay, let me quickly check other games that are still playing. So this is what I like about Lichess broadcast. Like if you just click on, if you already enter your homepage of the Lichess, you already entered your login details, and then you go to the menu on the top, on the watch, and then broadcast. It will show lots of tournaments that are being broadcast right now, and there are 3 sections in this UzChess Cup. The one that I'm showing has been the master section, and we're actually focusing on the master sections, the 5 boards in the master sections, but also there are other sections as well. There are challengers and futures, and the total prize fund for the whole event is $166,000 US. And for the master section, even if you didn't score any point, you still got $5,000 as a consolation prize. I don't know yet. I don't have any information yet about how many or how much for the top winners. I believe, of course, it should be more than 5,000. But just imagine entering a tournament where you don't really have to score anything and still going home with $5,000 US. It is such a nice tournament. I think the players are being spoiled with such nice conditions by the organizers, and also the prize money entices the players a lot and try to come up with their best chess. But also, on top of everything, there are professional players. So whether or not the money entails the tournament or not, I think they will also try to play their best chess. Okay, so let me scan quickly if we have interesting position in the challenger. So in the challenger, there's already one draw between Fakidov Jahongir versus Gupta, and the rest 4 games they are still playing. But yeah, this is very early. We are closing into finishing the first hour of the 6th round. So pretty much in most of the games, it is still equal. Although I'd like to get to the game between I forgot to enter my streamer's page. Yeah, so my streamer's page is 15 minutes later than you guys, as in I got everything in real time. But for others, it is not like that. Okay, let me see the challenger. Where is the challenger? Okay, Donchenko, Injic versus Donchenko. And it has, wait, report versus fitted. Oh, sorry, I will fix the camera because they've been moving it around, I guess. But first of all, let's go to this game between Injuch versus Donchenko, because just a few moves before it was such a nice or interesting position. So this is English, and with this idea f4, and here takes. So it looks like it's like the bird opening with f4, but having the pawn on d3 is a bit annoying for white. And there's this check and this, and castle takes c7, a6, and takes d8. Knight goes back to d4. So if we count the material in this position, white is up a pawn, but black has compensations. Black has more activity with the pieces. Black has also a pair of bishops, which might count for something because this is endgame and those bishops are quite active. So this is still the current position after knight d4. I mean, computer says that this is still pretty much equal anyway. Yeah, probably. Well, Injic is leading actually the challenger section right now, so half a point should be fine for him, because it's also a tough field. Like half a point is still going to be very hard. I mean, if he settles for draws for the remaining 4 rounds, I think he also has a good chance to win the tournament anyway, because his competitors also are going to have quite hard time in trying to win their games, because the players in the challenger section even, it's very tough opponents too. Okay, and let's also update ourselves on the game between Yang Yi versus Abdusattorov. I just want to see how it is happening. Oh, very nice. G5. I think we analyzed this, that if H3 happens, then you can forget about what's happening on the queen side, because now H3 is kind of, I would say, a concession toward the king, because it whenever there's G4 happens, you know, or knight H5. So here Abdusattorov played rook A F8. So he didn't care about all this outside pass pawn idea, because he is just going to try to attack the king side, which is, I would say, the right approach in this position, because white is kind of limited in the king side. White cannot really do anything, and then white can only try it from the queen side. But now it's a matter who is going to strike first. So it's a race now, the attacking race between white and black. White is attacking the queen side and black is attacking the king side. So who's striking first and who's having their attack succeed first, and he's gonna be the winner. But this is just the right game that I'd like to watch. It's balance and imbalance because it's balanced because both sides are attacking different sides, but it's imbalanced because it is different sides. So we're going to see what's going to happen on this game. And between Grischuk versus Maksudlu, this is actually exactly the position that I was a bit worried of for black. After knight bd2, of course, rook c8 is the move that very natural to make. But the question now is about the time, because he already spent this time with h6, which is not really necessary. And now after e4, yeah, black has to be very precise after this e4, because white is already striking first, and it is in the center. So maybe c5, yeah, c5 looks a bit loose as well, but maybe with a concrete calculation, this may work. So actually, after knight bd2, let's see what's happening, what the computer suggests in this position. So neither, yeah, the computer suggests that bishop b7 back. Yeah, e4 is always a threat, so after bishop b7, e4, let's say. At least now after d e4, knight e4, do you have c5 here? Or just takes? Takes, and then knight f6 maybe? No, queen c7 with the idea of c5. So that is the idea. And after rook c8, yeah, e4 is the best move, of course. And after c5, yeah, e4 is still the best move. Yeah, so yeah, e4 is always the best move in pretty much every variation that might occur. Okay, so evaluation, white is better in this position, but still too early to call anything, because we've seen many games where even white or black was much better, but in the end the other party would be able to equalize it. So, and Grishuk is not in his best performance right now, so he might miss a thing or two. But also on the other hand, Parham performance is not as the best too. But yeah, we'll see how these two players going to get the better of each other. While in the game between Richard Rapport versus Fitted, oh yeah, this is actually quite expected. After rook e1, yeah, I was wondering which side that he was going to play, whether it's b5, c5 or something like that. But I really like his idea, because I also wondered if he can just play g6 here and then bishop g7 and then play the King's Indian type of attack. But here actually after rook e1, he played g6, knight f1 and h5. So yeah, this is I would say I'm happy because my understanding is correct. That if your analysis can be confirmed by a 2700 like this, it's like a little victory for me, that oh okay, so I'm not telling lies. And also that I have this understanding to continue the position in the correct way. So h5 is on the board. Sooner or later the bishop will be back to g7 anyway. But now let's take a look, where does the knight go? So the knight already went to b8, so does it want to continue to d7? But if it went now, the bishop on c8 doesn't have anywhere else to go, so probably it might be just some waiting move then, like bishop g7. Tricky. There's also this idea that bishop g7 and then you take d4, take d4 and then d5, and after you play e5, now everything is kind of simplified around the center and the queen side. The bishop can just go to e6, let's say, and knight will go back to go to d7, and then you just play b6, c5, something like this. Of course, it requires lots of moves to be played, but it's just one idea on how to proceed in this position. It's just one strategy, because you already committed on playing g6 and h5 anyway, so I would say that f5 is out of question, because unless your pawn was still on h6, you can actually continue with f5. But now, since the pawn is already on h5, f5 will only weaken the position around the black's king. So Rapport is still thinking, and let me see other board. And this might just be yeah, I will have to update the cameras because they've been moving around so much, not in my control, so I will put us on a break while I'm going to fix the camera as well, so stay tuned. I will be back in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to round 6 of the UzChess Cup 2024. Sorry for the delay, I've been just trying to fix all the cameras around, and I think everything is fixed now and we can continue enjoying the games. There are already 2 games that finished in the master section. Sarana already drew against Yakuboev, and Sindarov also took a quick draw against Mamedyarov. And on the first board here, we see the game between Yu versus Abdusattorov, which has turned into quite a very exciting battle now, thanks to Abdusattorov's ambitious move of g5 on the 14th move. And here, Yu replied it with h3 and rook a f8, and after rook a d1, we see g4 is on the board. So, well, how to reply this g4 if we were white in this position? First of all, if you take the g4 pawn, then after knight takes g4, I feel a bit uneasy about this position, because the knight is very strong now on g4, and I'm just thinking that after a move like, I know it looks very bad, bishop d8, but my intention is to play either taking f3 or play rook g7, something like that, something to open up the g file. So this doesn't look really good for white, to be honest, but let's see if we try to strike it in the center. So after knight takes g4, what if I just play d4? Will there be some checkmating ideas around the king's side? Not too sure. So if we take the pawn, he takes d4 like this. How to continue this position? Oh, the queen can actually go to h5 at some point. So maybe in this position, we'll go here, because now the queen is hanging on d7. Oh, Yang, yeah, I think this is actually his intention after all, if this happens. So g4, hg, knight g, and then d4. So, oh, we might actually see this position. So obviously after knight g4, this has already happened on the board, he will play d4, because otherwise why would Yang play rook a d1 in this position if not preparing for d4? So g4, hg, knight g, and he just moved something. Yeah, d4 is already on the board. So we're analyzing actually the right position now, because this is happening between their game. So d4, and yeah, if you take this, knight takes, and this one is under attack. So what else can black do in this position? If you take this, then f takes maybe. Although, I don't know, this position you can actually take with anything. With the rook is possible, with the knight also is possible. I don't see why not. So what else? Can we sacrifice this? Takes, takes, and takes like this. Yeah, this might be too much, but this requires a lot of calculation. Let's say d5, because if white managed to exchange the queen, then white is fine. Then maybe bishop here. Queen takes, let's say queen here. It looks scary. But is it enough to win? If here, oh, if here, then knight takes here. Wow, okay. So a sacrifice might happen then, because let's see it again. Takes, takes, and takes. and you cannot really do anything in this part of the board. So probably you have to play d5. But in this position after d5, yeah, bishop h4, just ignore this and allow white to take it. And then queen here, this is about to come, like these checks. So if you give a check here, it's only just one, yeah, king h7. Actually, this is very interesting. Is it going to happen in the game? I don't know. But this is definitely what Abdusattorov should be calculating as well, apart from other variations, because this type of position, you cannot just calculate one single line. There are so many branches in that line, of course. So let's take a look what does the computer say actually. Rook g7, so not taking it. So rook g7 with the idea of taking it now, because now this rook is already eyeing to the king. So let's take a look rook g7 later. But what happened after rook takes f3? It's not a good one, because after takes here, king g2. That's actually a very nice defense move, because you allow the rook to go to g1, and then it's pinning the knight to the king. But if for some reason king g2 wasn't played and d5 was played instead, yeah, so I was right. So if d5 happened, then it's bishop h4. And it's losing because you have queen g7 soon. Then after this, queen g7 is just a move. Yes. So, but okay, so I miss this move, king g2 then, which is, I would say, not that easy to spot, but I think after you calculate many things, you would be able to find it. But Abdusattorov, he's playing well. He spot on this move, rook g7, rather quickly, I would say. And this is the best move on this position. So what's gonna happen? King f1 is what the computer suggested, because you have to step away from the g file, and king f1 is the move. And now bring all your major pieces to the king. So queen e8, possibly about playing this maybe. And also the queen was hanging on d7. It's not protected. So in many cases that, yeah, you don't have to sacrifice the knight on c6 maybe. Here the computer suggested d takes e5 and queen g6. He takes d6, something like this, and knight takes f2. Oof, d takes e7, queen takes g2. What's happening? King e2, queen takes f3, king d2, yeah. And knight takes e7. Wow, this is such a hard position to even calculate until the end. But the thing is, if you don't go to this type of position, then what else would be the defense, right? I think white has to be really brave now, and not having a second thought in approaching this position, because this is very dangerous. So what is the idea? The idea is just rook takes here. So let's say we chicken out and then play knight c d2, just protecting the knight like this. This looks more human. But since there is nothing on the board, like there's no combination or things like that, black can also continue in the same manner by playing bishop f6. And the computer suggested knight c4 back again. That is ridiculous. I mean, how is it possible to even consider that? But yeah, now I think I can safely say that Abdusattorov is in the driver's seat, because there are only two alternatives here for white. If white was brave enough and then play the moves that we just saw, like king f1, and then suddenly the king will be on d2, and even if that was the pick, it's going to be very hard to calculate everything, and also to consider all the lines. The second option is to play a normal move, but a normal move means it's giving black time to also prepare all the attack. So yeah, it's a tough situation now for Yang Yi, obviously. Yeah, so I have a feeling Abdusattor will win this round, and tomorrow we'll have two leaders. Yeah, sharing the lead between Abdusattor and Yakuboev, and both of them actually already led before together too. So yeah, it's just it takes one loss from Sindarov to awaken the lion soul of Abdusattorov in the tournament, because this game is I think it's so far it's been going so great for black here. Okay, let's also see other games because we still have 3 games that's still playing in the master section. Let's see the game between Grishchuk versus Maksudlu. And after e4, this is the last position that we saw. After e4 we have c5 and ed5. So Grishchuk didn't play he didn't play e5 then, which I was a bit worried of. So he just took the pawn on d5, ed5 and rook ac1 now. And the position still is slightly better for white. Okay, and what about the game between Rapport versus Fitted? I think we saw the position after h5 here, and Rapport played queen d2 and knight d7 and rook ad1. Yeah, very understandable from Rapport, because you just want to develop your pieces, right, and then play in the center. So now the computer suggested to continue this with c6. I'm just trying to understand what is going on here. So if c6, then bishop b3, king g7, not bishop g7. Yeah, there will be so many maneuvering ideas in this position, and everything will be quite slow, in fact. Okay, and we also have in the challenger section we have this game, Pratke versus Yilmaz Mustafa, and I think we saw the position after g4. Here rook fd8 and then g5. The knight went to e8, knight e4 and bishop e7, and rook b1. So now it's a question on how to protect the b7 pawn. The traditional b6 was apparently not into his liking, because he's been spending some time in this position. Like after rook b1, yeah, he hasn't played, and it's almost 20 minutes of thinking. So what didn't he like after b6 then? It should be something to do with this diagonal, yeah. Bishop f4 was what computer suggested. Yeah, I can totally understand why white is better in this position, because the pieces are more energetic and team up very well with each other. So here computer suggested knight f5, but doesn't it mean, yeah, knight e5 looks very normal. Bishop a4, offering the trade, and should we take it? No, just step aside to c1. And eventually, after almost 20 minutes of thinking, Yilmaz Mustafa replied it with b6. What about, yeah, the game between Suleimanli Aydin versus Romanov? So Suleimanli is currently not in a great performance. I think he's in the bottom place in the challenger section, but this position, although it looks still very, very early, like just entered the middle game, or maybe there's some broadcast error, I don't know. Yeah, but white is standing much better, so what's happening? I just want to see the opening. Okay, so knight f6 and knight d2. Interesting. Yeah, why not d5? Because usually it invites d5 to happen. d5, d5, knight d5, knight to f3, or even c3 here. Then it looks like it's a French, yeah, like the knight d2 French. Castle, castle, knight c6. Yeah, then it's like a French defense. Okay, so he didn't do that. Black played d6 and then maintains the Sicilian position. And yeah, the position looks nice now for white. And a6, and the computer suggested to play e5 immediately, which I think it is very important to take this bishop. And then the rook left, and after d5, knight d6, awesome. Right, wow, this is killing. And if takes, let's grab all the pawns. Rook g3, attacking g7, f6 has to be played, but e6 is lost, and you cannot play e5 because of knight f5. And this bishop is just a way more superior bishop than the bishop on b7. So if f6, then knight takes, rook f7, bishop f6. Okay, this is still, yeah, this is gonna be quite a long stretch, but this can potentially happen. Do we have a move on the first board? Because that is very interesting. So no, Yang Li is still thinking after rook g7. Yeah, this is a very, very tough position for him. I would be actually surprised if he can manage to pull a draw here, or even a win, because this is actually right at Abdusattor's field to play this type of position. He is a very not only ambitious player, but also very energetic. While he's young, he likes attacking chess, and he calculates very well. Okay, so still no move yet from this one, and also from Grishchuk versus Parham, we have a move, rook ac1. Yeah, rook ac1, then how to continue? Rook e8. So this is still like in the developing stage, maybe. So rook ac1, rook e8. You just try to get your pieces out, and yeah, but this feels a bit loose, yeah, because the queen is standing here. But how to continue this? Queen f5 then. Wow, provoking g6, because after g6, just queen b1. And okay, this is actually, I can understand, yeah. The knight is kind of loose now. You can actually think of playing queen a1 and then use this diagonal for the attack. So queen f5, queen f5, then what? Bishop b7, because the bishop is no longer working on a6. Knight e5, let's say, takes d4, knight takes d7, or yeah, queen d7. How is this endgame? Bishop d4 and then knight f6, like this. Bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight f1. Okay, this will fall sooner or later. So black is trying to get some compensation like this, rook e2, a4, and then bishop g5. Okay, this is going to be very long, but white will maintain the advantage, and perhaps just played something. What could it be? C takes d4. So he decides to just simplify the tension in the center by taking one of the pawns. So here, if white continues with knight takes d4, and then bishop c5. What happened after this takes actually? Oh yeah, of course, knight c6. I forgot that the diagonal is already opened. Alright, knight d4, and then you have to prepare for knight c6 then. Bishop c5 first, but it means knight f5. It's still very complicated, I would say, although the computer says that the white is better. I think it's understandable to know and to see why white is better, because white's pieces are more active and it is more attacking. The double f setter works really well for white here, and yeah, trying to take control on the g7 pawn maybe at some point. But here Grischuk is for choices, but I would say knight d4 is the most natural capture in this board. So I don't think he will take much time to play it. So let's also continue with the game between Rapport versus Fidit. This has simplified a little bit on the center as well. After rook a d1 here, Fidit decided to take the pawn on d4, but this only gives more advantage to white's position, because white is losing the center pawn on e5, but white maintains its control over the center. So e4 cd4, and he continued with bishop g7. I'm just wondering what is happening, because now I'm really worried of this bishop being very active, because this type of pawns, although it looks like it's active, but in the long run it gives like an outpost for the knight on g5. So I'm not too sure on how I feel about this position. And also, judging from the time situation, Rapport is about 30 minutes ahead of Fidit. So, and they still have to make how many moves? 22 moves to the time control. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty hard, especially for Fidit, who is down on time right now. Okay. Still no move yet from Yu Yangyi as well. What about the first board in the challenger between Pratke versus Yilmaz? Here after b6, still no move yet from Pratke. And Suleimanli was having a nice position here, also still no move yet. While Donchenko, Injic versus Donchenko, I think we've seen it before. And yeah, looks like the pair of bishops they're just very nice. But still white is up a pawn, so there should be some compensation. And there's also already a draw between Fakidov versus Abhijit Gupta. A very short draw in this position. This is the final position of their game. And Matlakov versus Fakidov Shamshidin. This is currently happening. So let me switch the camera back actually to me. Let's see what's happening in this game. I just wanna see quickly the opening, and it's an Italian with the early d5, takes, and rook e1, bishop g4, knight bd2, knight b6, h3, here bishop b3, take d3, take e5, and then queen f5. And then knight back to f3, rook here, queen here, knight here. So takes, yeah, this is happening now. So white has a pair of bishops, but black has better pawn structure. So which one is better? It would be depending on the next moves to come. Okay, Maybe let's take a look also at the futures. Just wondering how they are playing actually. Let's see between these two young players. I think Madaminov Bukirin, I think he just completed the GM norm requirement in the last either probably it's Sharjah, or it could also be Dubai Police or Dubai Open. So definitely a player to watch out for. And here, what is this position? Let's see. So it was like an attempt to Berlin, and this happens, takes, and then d4. Okay. And after bishop b6, rook e1, bishop g4, queen c2, queen d7, b3, and then rook f8. And bishop b2, bishop takes f3, knight takes f3, d5, and knight e5, queen d6. So this is the current position. I believe it should be quite roughly equal. Yeah, although white is slightly better. Yeah, it suggested this idea, e5, queen c6 here. Okay, and what about Daneshvar Bardiev versus Said Aliyev? The king in the center, no queens. What opening? It was an English. Ooh, the queen looks like it's trapped. If it was Eric Rosen, he would say like, "Oh no, my queen." And here, of course, the queen on f5 has to be attacked to allow this exchange. Bishop c7 and king e7, c5, knight e8. Okay, all right. So I guess up to this point, everything was kind of equal. Although white is down a pawn, but white has a nicer position, I would say. So there might be some compensation. So this is the current position right now. Okay, let me check also. Oh, Yu Yangyi has played already, so let's get back to the first board between Yu Yangyi versus Abdusattorov. He indeed played king f1. What did we analyze after king f1? I think it was queen e8, yeah? You just want to put the queen in the protected place, and also at the same time you want to, at some point maybe you want to put it on h5 and then try to attack the white king like that. He's definitely looking at it. Apart from queen e8, what else can we suggest in this position? Can we sacrifice? I mean, if black wanted to sacrifice, he could have done so before. But there's a reason why Abdusattorov played rook g7. So queen e8 might be just a move that he will be making. And it looks like after considering other options doesn't look so enticing. Queen e8 serves the purpose that you want to keep attacking the white's king on f1. We'll leave this one for a bit and let's continue checking the game between Krischuk versus Maksudlu. Wow, I didn't expect that to happen. cd4, knight d4, and here black played b5, trying to attack the pawn on c4. But there should be something wrong in this position. Alright, before we consult the engine, let's figure this out. So you cannot play the c pawn because it is bent. Is it time to move the queen? I think so. Because whenever the d pawn takes c4, it gives this idea. So maybe this is the time to play queen f5 then. If this bc, then you can just take bc like that. And then you're attacking this now. Oh, I think b5 is just a blunder. And after queen f5, you're attacking b5 as well. So that is why I don't think b5 is the right move to make, because it looks like Grishchuk might be winning for the first time in this tournament, because he has 1.5. Oh, he played queen b1. Okay. I think with similar idea, you just want to step away from the pin on the c file. But is queen f5 better than queen b1? Queen b1 is actually the best move. And what happened after queen f5? Queen f5 still is a good move, but queen b1 is the best. So queen b1, b takes c4, b takes c4. This already happened on the board. Okay, queen b6 looks very natural. You just want to also develop your queen. But I guess Parham already thought that he's going to just give up a pawn in order to get more activity. So cd5 might happen, and after rook c1, they will soon enter the endgame with one pawn extra for white here. So bishop d3 takes here, and knight here. Yeah, still needs quite some work there, but yeah. But after this position, this is the current position right now. White can actually be more relaxed, because it looks like it doesn't matter what black do, white will stand better. So rook e8. Let's see. Yeah, whenever this pawn will fall for sure. And the thing is, you cannot really take it because there's knight c6 now. And after queen e8, let's say, there is a, first of all, there is this one, but I also don't see anything wrong with rook d1. Probably you have to sacrifice your rook in the end anyway. So here, knight takes c4, and then bishop c5. This is what the computer suggested. Yeah, this looks like a nightmare for black to play. So I don't know which one that Parham will choose, rook e8 or queen b6. Yeah, queen b6 looks more natural in this position. Let's leave this one for a while. Do we have any moves on the game between Yang Li versus Abdusattorov? After king f1, queen e8, just and the right timing to witness this move happening on the board. Queen e8, he found all the best move. Abdusattorov just going for the kill. Yeah, starting with this move, yeah. Looks like everything is very calm until on the 14th move he went g5, and after h3 rook a f8, after rook a1 continue with g4, takes, and after d4 rook g7. So every single move from the 14th move, he's just attacking something. And now after king f1, queen e8. So looks like everything is in harmony, but of course black could dream to bring this knight into attack, because out of every piece on the board that black has, only the knight is not participating into the attack. But yeah, such a nice position already, and I cannot actually remember what we analyzed there. Is it d5? Because again, if white is able to trade the queen, then white is fine. So what was the move again? Queen g6, yeah. So if we take this with the pawn or with the queen, yeah, knight takes here, and then you cannot take this because it's gonna be mate in one with this check on g2. I mean, if you take it with the king like this, it's just mate on g2. And if you take it with the bishop, there's queen takes g2 here, and then it takes with the rook. What about taking with the queen? It is still okay too. But apparently with the rook was fine, but taking with the queen is more natural. here takes, so we are entering the position where in the end black didn't sacrifice anything and is left with a huge positional advantage. So if this happens, then yeah, it's GG. So apart from d5, what else can we suggest in this position? Because it wants to just play queen g6 and knight takes f2. So they have similar time situation, although this looks very complicated for both sides. For Yu Yang to defend the position, and for Abdusattorov also to attack. So here the computer suggested d takes e5, and still you're going to play queen g6, it takes d6, and now knight takes f2. Oh yeah, this is what we analyzed before. And if you take this and queen takes g2, the funny thing is after this, if you play king here, I think it's mate in 2 no matter what, like however, mate in 1, sorry, mate in 2 because there's bishop f2. Okay, so you have to play king d2, and here just take the pawn on e7, and after bishop takes here, wow, this is still like only 0.2. The evaluation is still only 0.2 for black, so white has quite some chance to save himself. And after here, it has to be knight e3. No, this is so complicated. And okay, there is one idea of knight d1, but computer suggested not rook e8, but rook d8 with a check and king c1, and then you take the rook on d1, and you take the other rook on g2, queen takes g2, queen check here. This is how you're going to make a draw, ladies and gentlemen. How are the players supposed to find all of these moves? But of course, there's always a possibility, but I guess the possibility is pretty slim. So this is still the current position. We'll leave this for a bit because I see on the live feed there Parham is walking around. So he must have made a move. What did he do? After bishop takes c4, oh, he didn't do either queen b6 or rook e8. He played knight e5. Very brave. I'm a bit worried on this position. So let's play queen f5. I just want to attack. So if this knight goes here, I'll take, and bishop takes maybe, yeah? Yeah, maybe it's saving the day, so maybe not queen f5. Okay, let's take a look again. So knight e5. Now if I push this pawn, no point in pushing to c5, but if I take the pawn d5, I think the idea is somehow to undermine this. But how? If you play this, then queen a1. And this battery is very dangerous. And if you play knight here, then can I play knight c6 actually? Or rook c6? Or takes and knight c6? Yeah, probably just takes, because you have to take it with the queen. And now knight c6, just attacking this. Yeah, this cannot be happening. This just losing immediately. Only hoping this one actually, but then you have this. Oh, there's some funny line here. Bishop takes d4. You give a check because you see that this is a nice fork to the king and the queen, and you have to go king here actually, only move so that your knight can move later. So knight here,